He watched her cry under the cherry blossoms and said nothing. Then he took off his jacket, placed it over her shoulders, and whispered, "You don't have to be okay right now." She had known him for 6 days. She would love him for the rest of her life. Zaraminsa had one rule she had kept her entire life. She did not cry in front of people. She had grown up in Kumasi, Ghana, the first daughter of a woman who ironed her dress every morning and told her, "You are Mensa. We carry ourselves with dignity." She had carried herself with dignity through her father's death when she was 12, through the scholarship rejection at 18, through the 30-hour flight to Seoul, South Korea, where she arrived alone at 22, clutching an acceptance letter to Hanyang University School of Nursing. She had not cried once, until the day she got lost in Udo Park during cherry blossom season, and her phone died, and she sat down on a bench under a tree, exploding with pink flowers, and felt, for the first time, the full, crushing weight of being completely alone in a country that was not hers. And she broke her rule. She pressed her hands to her face and cried, quietly, like she had been taught. Even her grief was disciplined, but her shoulders shook, and the tears came through her fingers. She did not hear anyone approach, but she felt the warmth before she saw it. A jacket draped gently over her shoulders from behind. She spun around, ready to be embarrassed, ready to apologize, ready to perform composure. He was sitting on the other end of the bench, looking away from her, deliberately giving her privacy. He had a notebook open on his lap, but he wasn't writing. He was just there. "Zara, what are you doing?" The man, sitting. "Zara, I can see that. Why did you put your jacket on me?" The man, "You were shaking." She looked down. She was shaking. She hadn't even noticed. The man, "You don't have to be okay right now." 6 words, said quietly to the air in front of him, not even looking at her. 6 words that hit Zaraminsa somewhere in her chest, so hard she almost started crying again. She took a breath instead. "Zara, I'm Fine." The man, "I know. That's what people say when they're not." She almost smiled. "Zara, your Korean accent is very strange." The man, "I grew up partly in Busan. People from Seoul say the same thing." "Zara, I'm Zara." The man, Park Seo-jin. He finally looked at her. Dark eyes, a tiredness in them that had nothing to do with sleep. "Seo-jin, the cherry blossoms only last about 2 weeks. You should try to look at them while you're still crying. It helps." She turned toward the tree above them, white and pink and impossibly beautiful against the gray Seoul sky. She breathed. It did help. Park Seo-jin had not written a single note of music in 742 days. He counted. He had been a film score composer, had scored 2 award-winning Korean dramas and 1 independent film that played at 3 international festivals. At 27, people in the industry said his name with a kind of reverence. He had a gift, they said. His music made people feel things they hadn't felt in years. And then Lee So-yeon died, his partner of 4 years. A cellist, the person who had sat in a studio at midnight and played while he composed, so he could hear if the notes were alive. She died in a car accident on a Tuesday in November. He got the call while he was at the piano. He had not touched the piano since. He carried the notebook everywhere because he thought if he just had it near him, eventually something would come. Some morning he would wake up, and the music would be waiting for him. 742 days. The notebook was still empty. He came to Udo Park because So-yeon had loved the cherry blossoms. He came to sit near something she had loved. He did not expect to sit next to a crying stranger from Ghana who wore her sadness so quietly it almost looked like strength. He did not expect to feel anything. But something moved in him, barely, like a note played very far away, and he did not want to leave. They kept meeting. It was not planned. The park was near his apartment and near her university dormitory. The cherry blossoms brought everyone out. But somehow on the 2nd day, and the 3rd day, and the 5th, they found each other on the same bench. They talked, carefully at first, then more. Zara told him about nursing school, the long hours, the Korean medical terminology she had to memorize phonetically because the sound was so different from anything in Shui or English. She told him about her mother's cooking, about palm nut soup, and how she sometimes stood in her dormitory kitchen trying to recreate it and always failing. Zara, it never tastes the same. My mother says it's because she adds love. I used to think that was just something mothers say. Now I believe her. Seojin, what does it taste like? The real version. Zara, like a warm hug from someone who has known you your whole life. He was quiet for a moment. Seojin, I haven't had that in a long time. She looked at him carefully. He didn't explain. She didn't push. That was the thing about Seojin. He left spaces in conversations, and somehow those spaces said more than words. She told him about her father, who had died when she was small and who she only remembered in pieces. The roughness of his hands, the way he called her my star child, the smell of his workshop. Zara, I became a nurse because of him. He died from something that could have been caught earlier. A simple diagnosis. If someone had looked properly, he would have lived. Seojin looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite name. Seojin, you carry everyone, don't you? Even people who are already gone. Zara, someone has to. He told her about music, not about losing it. Not yet, but about what it had once been to him. Seojin, when I was composing something real, something true, I felt like I was translating a language nobody speaks out loud. Like I was the only person who could hear it, and it was my job to give it to people who needed it. Zara, that sounds like a calling. Like medicine. Seojin, yes. And then imagine one day, the language disappears, and you don't know if it will ever come back. His jaw tightened. His eyes went somewhere distant. Zara wanted to ask. She didn't. Instead, she said, Zara, in Ghana, we say Obrayikeo. Life is a struggle, but we say it not with defeat. We say it with the understanding that struggle is not the end of the story. It is just part of it. Seojin turned to look at her fully, like she had said something that unlocked a door somewhere. Seojin, Obrayiko. Zara, your accent is terrible. Seojin, say it again. She laughed. He smiled, a real one, the kind that takes a face by surprise. It was the 6th day. The cherry blossoms were already beginning to fall. On the 7th day, Seojin invited Zara to his apartment for dinner. She almost said no. She was from a world where a woman going alone to a man's home meant something. Meant intention, meant decision, meant she had answered a question she hadn't been asked yet. Her mother's voice in her head was loud and clear. But she went, because something in her had already decided. His apartment was spare and quiet. A piano in the corner covered with cloth. She noticed but said nothing. He cooked doenjang jjigae, fermented soybean stew, and she sat at a small table and ate with chopsticks she was still learning to master. Seojin, you're holding it like you're angry at the food. Zara, I'm angry at the food. In Ghana, we use our hands or a fork. This is an instrument of frustration. Seojin, use a fork. Zara, absolutely not. I will defeat these chopsticks. He watched her, the determination in her face, the focus, the tiny private celebration when she managed to pick up a piece of tofu successfully. He felt something in his chest that he recognized distantly, like hearing a song you loved a long time ago. But later, when she called her mother on video and spoke in rapid Chui and laughed too loud, and her mother said something that made her cover her face in mock embarrassment. Later, when she hung up and was quiet for a moment with the afterglow of home on her face, Seojin said, Seojin, my family doesn't know about you. The warmth in Zara's face shifted slightly. Zara, should they? Seojin, my mother would. She would have questions. Korean families are traditional. The idea of me and someone who is not Korean, someone from a completely different culture. Zara, you don't have to explain. Seojin, I want to, because it isn't what I feel. I'm telling you what the situation is, not what I want. She was quiet. She looked at her hands. Zara, Seojin, I come from a culture too. My mother would also have 1,000 questions about a Korean man she has never met, who lives in a country she has never visited, whose food I cannot even pick up properly. Both of us are standing in the middle of two worlds. The question is not which world is right. The question is, are we brave enough to build something in the space between them? He stared at her. Outside, somewhere above Seoul, a wind came through and pulled the last of the cherry blossoms from the trees. Pink petals scattered through the dark like snow. He reached across the table and covered her hand with his. She let him. 3 months passed. They existed in a careful, tender, private world. Zara's Korean improved. Seo-jin learned 15 words in Chui and deployed them with hilarious mispronunciation that she corrected patiently every time. His mother called. He took the call in the other room. Zara heard her own name said once, clearly, and then the conversation dropped to murmurs. He never told her what was said. She noticed the cloth over the piano. She never asked. She noticed that he woke up some nights and sat in the dark, completely still, staring at something she couldn't see. She would bring him water. He would take it. They would sit together in the dark until he came back from wherever he'd gone. She loved him. She had not said it. Neither had he. But love doesn't always arrive in words. Sometimes it arrives in water brought in the dark, in a jacket placed on shaking shoulders, in someone who sits beside you and asks for nothing. On a Saturday in July, Zara came to his apartment and found the door unlocked and Seo-jin sitting at the piano. The cloth was gone. He wasn't playing, just sitting, hands in his lap, staring at the keys. She stood in the doorway. Zara, Seo-jin. He didn't look up. Seo-jin. She used to play cello while I composed. Her name was Lee So-yeon. She died 2 years ago. I haven't touched this piano since the day I got the call. Zara's breath caught. Seo-jin, I don't know why I'm telling you this now. Zara, because you're ready. Seo-jin, I'm scared that if I play, it will sound like grief. I'm scared that if I play, it won't. I don't know which is worse. Zara crossed the room. She sat beside him on the piano bench, close, their arms touching. She looked at the keys. Zara, my father used to say that the people we love don't leave us. They just change their address. Maybe the music went somewhere to wait for you. Maybe it was waiting for you to be ready to let it come back without it hurting so much. The room was completely silent, and then Seo-jin placed his hands on the keys. And he played. It was rough and unsteady at first, like a voice that hasn't spoken in years. But it came. Note by note it came. And it was not only grief. It was everything. Loss and mourning and the smell of palm nut soup and cherry blossoms and a woman crying quietly on a bench and 6 words that changed everything. Zara sat beside him and said nothing. She let the music fill the room. She was crying. She didn't try to hide it. It was Yunji who told her. Yunji, her university friend, who worked part-time at a cafe where industry people sometimes came. Yunji, Zara, I need to show you something, and I need you to be calm. Zara, that sentence never leads anywhere good. Yunji, I'm serious. One of the producers at my cafe today, he was talking about Park Seo-jin. He said Seo-jin has been offered the biggest commission of his career. A major Hollywood studio. Full film score. He said Seo-jin accepted it weeks ago. Zara, the project is based in Los Angeles. He'd have to move. For at least 2 years. Zara sat very still. Zara, he didn't tell me. Yunji, there's more. The producers said Seo-jin asked them to delay the announcement because of a personal situation he was trying to figure out. Zara, he turned down the first offer. He asked if he could work remotely. They said no. He's been trying to find a way to stay. The world tilted. She went home. On her desk was a letter she had assumed was from the university. An envelope she hadn't opened because she'd been distracted. She opened it now. It was not from the university. It was from Seo-jin. Handwritten. In Korean, with English translations he had written in the margins like footnotes. Patient, careful, the way he did everything. Zara, I have been trying to find the courage to say this out loud for 3 weeks. I failed, so I am writing it instead. I was offered a film project in Los Angeles. I initially accepted before I knew you. Then I tried to make it disappear because something in me was not ready to leave this city. Or more honestly, I was not ready to leave you. Her hands were shaking. I have thought about this every day, and I have come to understand something. You came to Korea alone at 22 to build a life. You did not wait for the world to be comfortable or easy. You just came. You have taught me, without trying, that love is not a reason to stop. Love is a reason to be brave enough to keep moving, even when it is hard. I am going to Los Angeles, and I am asking you not to wait for me, not to put your life in a box, but to let this be a beginning, not an ending. If you want it, If you choose it. Because I choose you, Zara. I choose you even when I'm scared. Especially then. P.S. I finally finished a composition. I named it Obrayiko. Your accent when you said it was perfect. Don't argue. Zara pressed the letter to her chest. She sat on the floor of her small dormitory room, thousands of miles from home, in a city of cherry blossoms and kimchi and a language she was still learning. And she laughed and cried at the same time, the way people from her part of the world do, with absolutely everything they have. She found him at the bench. Of course, that is where she found him. It was late October. The cherry blossoms were long gone. The tree was bare now, just branches against a white sky. But he was there, like he knew. She sat beside him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Seoul moved around them. Bicycles, children, a couple arguing gently over a map, the distant sound of music from a speaker somewhere. Life, in all its ordinary, overwhelming abundance. Zara, you turned down the first offer. For me, C.O. Jean, I turned it down because I wasn't ready. You made me ready. Zara, C.O. Jean, I'm going to finish my degree. Then I want to work with Medicine Sans Frontieres. Doctors Without Borders. I may be in different countries for months at a time. My life is not a simple one to walk beside. C.O. Jean, I know. Zara, you know and you're still. C.O. Jean. A composer who makes music for films knows better than anyone that the most beautiful scores are not the simple ones. The complicated ones, the ones with tension and resolution and unexpected key changes, those are the ones people remember for the rest of their lives. Zara looked at him for a long, full moment. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out the letter. She had folded it carefully and tucked it close. She held it up. Zara, your handwriting is terrible, by the way. C.O. Jean, I was nervous. Zara, park C.O. Jean. C.O. Jean, yes. Zara, I choose you too, even when I'm scared. Especially then. He exhaled, long, slow, like a man releasing something he had been holding for a very long time. She leaned her head against his shoulder. He rested his cheek on top of her braids. Above them, the bare branches of the cherry blossom tree held the sky. 6 months later, a film score called Obrayiko premiered at a festival in Los Angeles. Critics called it the most emotionally alive composition of the year. One reviewer wrote, "It sounds like two worlds learning to speak the same language." Zara heard it for the first time sitting in the front row. When the music swelled, when she heard the theme she recognized from the night he played in his apartment with shaking hands, she pressed her palm to her chest, like her mother had taught her, like she always did when something moved her too deeply for words. C.O. Jean was in the sound booth. He couldn't see her face, but somehow, the way musicians sometimes know things, he felt it. And for the first time in 742 days, in the 743 days after that, he was not grieving. He was alive.
If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, comment and subscribe for more stories.